Hi. Did you get the newest one? I think I sent you an old one, and then I realized I did. Just look at the new. I sent another one. All right, bye.
sound rumbling.
Rumbling?
Oh, it's music. Okay.
You could call it rumbling.
The bass is really high.
Oh, I can't control it. Really bad?
Well, okay, maybe when yeah, we just, there we go. Okay, now I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I took it off. Let me put it back. Let me
Okay.
put it back on. Okay.
That's better.
Okay. I think I'm going to leave it.
But
And,
you might make it just a little softer.
yeah. And I'm going to go. How do I turn my video off?
Okay. Right, I don't see you.
Your picture?
No, I just have it says schedule 19.
What is that?
Now I only see me. You're viewing, I'm looking at your screen and I see, I'm seeing your desktop.
You are?
Uh-huh. That's what it was on when I came. Okay, now.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to share again. There's just so many little dials and things here. It's so confusing.
Yeah.
I will get it.
Have your desktop again.
Okay.
I still see, okay, now I'm seeing, okay, now I see the session 4, get clear, how well.
Yeah, you can welcome people around this. If anybody comes early, they can. You don't see me, you just see my picture, right?
I don't even see your picture. I just see my picture.
Go into gallery view.
I'll go into gallery view. Okay. Options. Zoom, hide panel, request remote control, annotate, exit full screen.
You're looking at your video pictures. You select
side by side mode.
The
only picture I see is me, but I go side by side or photo of non-videos. There's one non-video participant. Show non-video participant. Let me see. Okay, now, all right. In order to see you, in order to see your picture, on the top it says show non-video participants.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's not a default.
Okay.
You may be able to make that a default.
I realized on the Zoom that I wanted to.
Or I think I may have shut that off the last time, but I opened this new. The reason was that this blank, I'd rather just wanted to see video people, but.
Well, we want to see everybody.
Yeah, okay, so let me see. I'm in speaker view. That's one speaker view.
I did like the poll.
Okay, that's good. Okay, Drew is coming in.
Wow.
Hey,
Joyce.
Hi there, how you doing?
Okay, how are you today?
We're doing good.
Hi, James.
Back in California.
All right, hi Peter. I'm so proud of myself just for being on time today.
You're way early.
On time, you get extra points. You're 11 minutes early.
Are you planning on meeting with anybody while you're here?
You mean today on this call?
Well, one of the things we had done is invited people to come early so they could with their teams.
Oh, I'm just early because I realized if I take my head away from my screen again, I'll be 10 minutes late. So I just thought I'll just
move. Well, good job on the scheduling you're working on with Wheelhouse today.
Yeah. So I'm glad I got to that, and I look forward to that meeting.
And we're all set with FI and with Peggy. What about a meeting with Through? Do you want to do that?
I think probably so. You know, it's to determine whether it's going to be worth anything. It so depends upon Daniel's mood. But
what about doing a meeting with or without him?
Without him, absolutely.
Well, why don't you schedule it for you, me, and Peggy, and then invite him if he wants to come?
Okay, that's a good idea. Peggy and I have been we've been having some great conversations in the last week, so I'm excited about it.
Just remember that you should prepare as if it's a regular board meeting. You know, and that way we're not, because what I don't want to do is the preparation in the meeting.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is one other thing. Can you give me a quick call?
Yeah, right now?
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Okay, I'll stay on.
So we'll be over here.
Okay. Hi, Jim. I see you're joining. I don't. I see you're muted off.
Yeah, I'm here. How are you today?
Okay, welcome.
Thanks.
And recalculate, because what we did in that session was assume the first payment in June, but now it's August, so you might want to run it by me before you do it.
Peter, you may want to mute yourself.
Okay. Bye.
And Jim, you see the opening poll? Lisa and Paul, I see you coming on. Paul.
Hey there.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Okay, where are you located?
I am at the CompuSearch office today
Oh, okay. And where is that?
in Dulles, Virginia.
Oh, okay. You're also a close person. Is that where you usually work out of, or?
For the class, I usually am home because I'm coming from DC, and I usually do the class from there. But today
see.
I wasn't downtown, so.
Okay. Okay, so Greg is here. Hi, Greg. Greg, it looks like we should hear you. Did you say anything? You're not muted, but I'm not hearing you, Greg. Try going on the bottom corner. There's a microphone, and if you click the arrow going up, there are a number of different settings. So if you don't have a headset, you probably want it set to check to see if it's. This happened to me the other day. Oh, okay. You're on mute now. Just wave at me if you think you're okay, Greg, and that you can talk when you want to. Okay, very good. Got it. Okay, let's see. Jadra. Okay, Jadra's coming on. And Brian. Great. And Scott. Okay, welcome, Scott. Everybody can see the poll, I hope, the session for operating models. So we'll be getting to this later in the session, but if you want to indicate your initial answers to that, that would be great. Peter should be coming on in a minute or so, and then we will be getting started. Welcome, Gina.
Joyce,
Yes.
I expect Peggy will be a few minutes late today. She's finishing up a client meeting around 4.
Okay. Okay. People are answering the poll. That's great.
Everybody?
Okay, Peter.
Yeah.
Great.
Welcome, everybody. We have less than a minute to go. We'll give a last second for everybody. Peggy, yeah.
And you heard what James said, Peter?
Yeah.
Peggy, okay.
All right.
There you go.
Let's go at it. So today's session, managed to lead using the 7 truths. Session 4, get clear, how well. And Joyce, I've turned you over as the moderator, and you can take us through this slide.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. Glad to have you here. Just a second. Right. Over here.
Might
Okay.
want to mute everybody else.
Okay. Where's the mute?
And mute all at the bottom.
That's, oh, there it is, mute all. Okay. Very good. Okay, I got them. Yes, okay. So we want to thank everybody who wound up giving us your feedback for the session, and we really appreciate getting that earlier, as early as possible. We did have a few late ones that we added in today. So we had 81% response rate, which is better than the time before, and have a mean of 8.6, which is also a little higher than the last session, and a little smaller standard deviation. So we really use this feedback, so please give it to us, and if you are on the phone live or if you are participating virtually, it lets us know that that you saw it, even whether you were here. So I pull it together about 3 p.m. on Friday, so to the extent you can do it before then, that would be great. In terms of our summary of the key takeaways, we amended this a little bit because we found your takeaways so interesting that we wanted to kind of highlight and review and emphasize. So knowing the current state before changing was one of the things several people said, and that's really important. And that every organization, there are basically 3 systems. I know I've used this multiple times now since this course has started in talking to people about organizations. And the other concept of that one of those is going to be your current largest constraint. Today we're going to be focusing on even more on the 5 basic operating models, and so that was an important takeaway for folks, and the importance of knowing what model you're in or the one that you want to become, and if it's different or evolving, why. And we're really going to get into that in a really good way today. And then the importance of the diagramming and communicating the way that you do sell and grow, and working with management and employees so that there's clarity, there's buy-in, and that there's alignment. It's not so much, as Peter said, getting it right, but it's making sure that people are all on the same page. So in terms of your input and our responses to that, on the top, I don't have the Peter, I don't see where I can point people to it.
Oh, you in your.
Sorry.
I'll do the pointing.
Okay. All right. So the program and what we need to do is starting to make sense. This is really true of this kind of program. There's a lot of material, but it's starting to come together, and we're really glad to hear that. And your feedback is really helping us to understand what you get, what to focus on more and allow time for, and so we can get how to make it clear sooner for others in the future. Because as we said, this is the first time that we're doing it virtually, and there are differences. What kind of organization are we? This is really important to keep talking about, and to, as we said earlier, not so much get it right, but get the different stakeholders in your organization all on the same page, and that alignment trumps rightness.
Let me comment. Yeah, the number of you have asked questions in the feedback or otherwise to say, how do we sort this out? And my best advice right now, just like Joyce just said, is not to worry about getting it right, but just talk about it. Talk about it with your team. Talk about it with stakeholders in your organization that are not in the program with us, but are out there. And then talk about it today in your team, and then cross teams. And again, don't worry about getting it right. Just talk about it. And if you want my input or our input further down the road, we'll give it to you. But at this point, it's most important to just know that it's important to talk about and get alignment on.
Right. Okay. What's the difference between channel and exchange?
I'll take this one.
Okay, you take this one.
Yeah, I sort of look at an exchange as a super channel, where a channel connects a buyer and a seller. And we'll talk a little bit more today about, for each of the models, what you have to be good at and what you watch to know how well you're doing, and how the finances work, and they're pretty different between each of the models. Between channel and exchange, one of the biggest differences is what happens in the middle. A channel just connects buyer and seller. An exchange there's logic that's driving to match possible buyers with possible sellers. So that's a big difference. We'll leave it at that for now, and see if that question continues after today. Also, the question came up about what's so hard about being in multiple models. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today, see if that question persists. But ultimately, it's hard enough to be successful in one model because there's so many things you have to do and be good at and to watch, even for one model, but it's really hard to do that for 2 or 3 or for a mixture. We'll talk about that more today.
You also said a number of people asked they wanted to break out more and longer for your teamwork. So that caused us to think about what we could do. And so 2 things: we are going to be spending more time in teams today, and actually going forward, you'll be spending more time. We thought, and I think that but at the beginning, it was good to get the perspectives of other people and earlier on. And so we were doing that both to build a learning community and for you to get input from people who you don't know and see what they see. But in addition to that, because Zoom has the opportunity for those who are geographically dispersed to be able to meet, what we'll do is we'll open 20 minutes ahead of time and stay 20 minutes after time. And so if you as a team want to meet, we can just put you in a breakout group. So you can use the before or after time, and you also have a little bit more time in this. But basically what we're trying to do is take a lot of material from the course and pick out the most important parts. And if we put more into team, then we have less material that we get a chance to review. So it's a trade-off. So keep giving us feedback as to what you think about the balance.
What we're also finding is some of the teams are starting to set up a standard time to meet between sessions on their own, apart from the sessions, so that you're more than encouraged to do as well.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage that. And then the last one, someone mentioned that the optional reading, particularly the "don't do what you're told" post. If you haven't read that yet, I really encourage you to read it. It was very good. And there's another one also: the CEO should strive not to do anything. Again, you're going to get as much out of this as you put in. And so if you have the time and can make the time to look at the optional readings, I find them extremely valuable.
And it helps us to know which ones you particularly like, and we'll draw out so we can share it with others.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome.
So let's just look at an update on where we are in the program. We are marching our way through Get Ready. So remember, our axiom is you can't really start to change something until you know where you're starting. And what we're doing is developing a rigorous way to describe an organization as in its starting state. And so far, we're right about to here. At the end of today, we'll have covered get clear what you do for whom and why they buy it, how you do it, and how well you do it relative to how you used to do it, how you said you would do it, and how others do it. And at this point, we'll do a breakout at the end of the day for you to work in your team and then across teams to share to whatever extent you've developed an articulation of your WWW, your how, or your how well. And that, again, is a early stage draft version of what we'll be talking about down here in the final presentation. Next week, we'll cover Get Aligned, which is all about that top team, top players all getting on the same page to use their great strengths all towards the same ends. So there's an update on where we are. We'll do a sliding bar like this for each session. The CETA team, led by Angela, has volunteered to present their WWW in a quick look at a process diagram, much like Rise did last time. Many seem to like hearing one in group. Like last time, let's make comments in the comment section that we can share with the team afterwards, which we did with Rise, and they were very appreciative of that. And we'll also maybe field a few comments along the way. So Angela, if you're on, do you want to open up your mic and take over for a few minutes?
Yes. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay. And Peter, feel welcome to hop in. So our group offers a senior executive team assessment, which is why our team is called CETA. We provide a process to collect, consolidate, and communicate. Well, let me take a step back. We're doing 3 different things. 2 are different assessments with an executive team, and then the 3rd piece is recommendations. So first piece, we provide the first assessment, a way to process to collect, consolidate, and communicate a multi-rater peer assessment on the team's individual strengths, contributions, growth, and opportunities for improvement. This is curated by the leader, often played by the CEO, and then refined with the top team. The second piece is a second multi-rater assessment, and this determines the executive team's individual, and then looking at them as a whole, mix of skills. So these are what they know, what they're doing with what they know, and then what they're doing with that information and turning it into actions. So we compare these profiles, both individually and then as a collective, with profiles of teams that have already been successful at this company's stage of growth. So they can see kind of where they're missing pieces, as well as look toward the future, what they will need upcoming as the company continues to scale. Who is this for? Directors, owners, and operators of sizable companies. So this is 20 to 200, and whose leader's been in place for about a year. So they have kind of an understanding of things. They're meshing well with people, but they want that next step of where to go from here. And then the why is to help leaders get clear about what they need to do in terms of individual and team development, and how to deploy those resources in order to get on track at their current stage towards success, as well as prepare for success in future stages as the organization matures.
Everyone, take a second and make a note or two to feedback to the team. Anything you observe, note, question, wonder about, like, in what you just heard. Angela, I would say that was well articulated, given the state of this evolution. Very nice. Brent, is Brent on, do we know?
Yes.
Brent, do you want to say anything on covering?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, he's not. He's not.
Okay, he'll say it in the video later. He watched the video last time as well. Good job, Angela. Anybody want to say anything on what they just heard? The what section is wordy, according to Bob, and I think we can agree with that. So maybe the question is, how do we take that up a level, right, Angela?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm interested, Angela, in your under who, your comment about has been in place about a year. Just before I make any more comments, like why is that the magic thing? Is it at least a year?
Yeah, it's within your first year, it's like you're still trying new things, you're trying to figure things out. If you haven't had about 9 months to a year already go by, you just don't need any more information, or you don't know what to do with it. You're sort of still in basically it's after the honeymoon period. So the honeymoon period is over. You've done what you can do, and you're not quite hitting stride. That's probably who we're helping the most. If you're already on stride, then you don't need it. You do probably need it. You'll do even better, but we're not going to find those people very receptive because they're so busy being successful with what they're doing. So what we're finding is people at this juncture are pretty open to input. They're like, I need some help. And interestingly, we find some of the same things need to be said each time. Like, have you been really clear about what you're trying to do and who you're counting on for what? And have you communicated that? So this really, if anything, this is a big lift for a chief executive getting clear about what they need to do to get their team successful. Angela, David asks, is this a product, a service, or something else?
Do you want to take that one?
Well, what do you think?
I would say it's a product because it is an assessment. However, we're also providing a service on the...
It's really a packaged service, right? So we've taken a service and put a name on it and a ribbon around it, said, buy this as a product. Good question. And then John asks, what is an example of development in the why section? What is an example of what we would recommend?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Let's see, what would you recommend? Intellivan has a a slew of different workshops,
So
depending
training.
on training.
Training could be one. Hiring could be another. Culling could be another. Reassigning could be another. So there's a whole number of things that are oriented towards building the team that you really want to have based on, like, if you're weak on think and you need more think to be like teams that have been successful at your stage of evolution, hire people who can think. Or hey, tell everybody, hey, you know what? We need to spend more time thinking about what we're doing before we run off and do it. So go from ready, fire, aim to ready, aim, fire, and work on procedures and processes to make sure we do that. These become choices that the process introduces to the top team through the process, the package process. All right, thanks to that. Let's go on, but that's been great input, good cut, and everybody should be somewhere along the way towards doing something similar to what Rise did last week, what CETA did this week with their WWW. But now let's go on to the process chart real quick.
Okay, so you'll see here we have the processes in the blue boxes and then the input and output as arrows pointing in and out. So we start with, for the two different assessments, you'll see under and over the first box, we have the 39 question multi-rater assessment, which is to do the skill mix, and we have the 5 question, which is to do the performance assessments, and then the one-on-one interviews will play into each of those. So we consolidate and review that with the CEO. Then we will go into a meeting facilitated by us, where we are reviewing each individual one by one and the information that came in about them. So they will leave the room. We'll talk about those strengths, growth, opportunities for improvement about each person, come up with the most important pieces to share with them. And then in the next piece, we'll take the curated information about the CEO and give that feedback to the CEO. That's part 1 of this step. And then part 2 is to work with the CEO, getting clear on the messages that we want to deliver back to each team member.
That they want to deliver back, that the CEO wants. We're getting the CEO clear. We'll have suggestions, but it's up to the CEO to get that clarity and then to administer it.
Yes, so next up, the CEO will administer the feedback that was about each team member to that particular team
Often
member.
with our assistants, even in the like Brent might join them in the administration. So there you go. Well, thanks for that, Angela. You can tell it's come a long way. It probably has a little ways to go. If people have feedback, put it in the chat, or later today, one of you will get lucky enough to join up with Angela in the pairing, and we can go you can go further with it. Okay.
Fabulous.
Great.
Thank you, everyone, for your feedback. It's welcome. Please be harsh.
Okay, while you're doing that, let's just summarize real quick what we'll be covering today. We're going to dwell a little bit on the financials and talk about how the financials tell a story about an organization. And then a little bit more on the operating models and what distinguishes one from another in terms of what you need to be good at to be successful in that model, how the finances work in that model, and what you want to know how well you're doing in that model. And then also consolidate the point that it's important to always be assessing how well the organization is doing. And the way you do that is to compare how it's doing today by the metrics relative to how it has been doing them in the past, how we're supposed to be doing it based on the plan for the present, and then how other organizations like yours are performing on similar metrics. So we want to get to the point, we're not going to try to turn you into financial analysts by any means, or even mid-tier MBA financial competence here. It's more just a matter of demystifying some of the basic financial terms and reporting components so you be a little bit comfortable with them, not afraid of them when they come up in conversations, and be actually even interested in them to ask good questions when people start talking about the financial part of their business. We'd actually like to get to the point where you can begin to get your arms around your organization's financial model if you're not already, and then to craft a income statement for your organization and extract from that the story that the financial picture tells about your organization. So we have our usual agenda for the day. We'll have a relatively short time talking about the truth and a large amount of time working on with them in our skill development practice case, and give you a fair bunch of time here, 35 minutes to work on your own and across teams on your own WWW, how well and how, in our usual wrap up. Okay, so this is our get clear, how well. We'll finish up get clear with this today. So remember, we have the 5 basic ways of organization works: product, service, operation, channel, exchange. And each of those is more or less uniquely defined by 3 things. What you need to be good at to know how well you're doing what you need to be good at in order to be successful in that operating model. How the financials work when money comes in, how much comes out at the end after you cover the cost of being in business, and what you watch to know how well you're doing. Each of these 3 tend to be quite different across these models. Before we go on, what do you watch in the chat, please? What do you watch to monitor how well your organization is doing today? Could I just put out a few things there? Working view versus plan on what, Jim? Working view of what? Student survey list for Jadra. So what are you asking the students to tell you about? When you say results, what do you mean? What is the result you're looking for? Lisa says, I can't quite make out what that word is. Chairability? Jim Morgan nails it with revenues. You're watching revenue. James is saying utilization, which means of all the resources you have, how many of them are deployed doing things that lead to generating revenue? Chargeability, of all, Lisa clarified, of all of the hours a person has, how many of them are deployed on client projects for which they're being paid $1 per hour? Excellent. Greg, revenue, direct contribution, actuals this year relative to plan and compared to last year. Excellent. Jadra, highlights, lowlights, takeaways from the sessions. Excellent. Good job. Okay, thank you. Let's go down a level now and look at each of these. And we already talked a little bit last time about how you fund, how you pay for what goes on in each model and what comes out of it. But we haven't talked yet about these 3 columns on the right. What do you need to be good at? What do you watch to know how well you're doing? And how the financials work. So let's take one. We have a product, something that we sell. What do you need to be good at to be in a product business? You need to be good at selling a product. You need to be good at taking care of a product for customer support. You need to be good at developing the product. You need to essentially get good at managing a product, being CEO of a product. They often call that product management or project manager. The things you watch are, how many people do you have selling the product? And how many are at full capacity in so doing, as opposed to coming up the learning curve? How long have they been there? And how many dollars per sale do you get? And how many dollars per salesman do you get? And I know this for a fact because when I've run software product businesses and we speak before the stock analysts and talk an update on how the company is doing, these are the only things they care about. That and ultimately, how much of what comes in goes to the bottom line, which earnings before income taxes is a measure of profit. And if all the revenue that comes in, 20% or so or more, sometimes up to 40% or 50% of what comes in drops to the bottom line. That's a very important number, and it's pretty high compared to other models. The value of the organization is a multiple of earnings, and it could be 20, it could be 30, it could be 40, it could be, if you look at the stock charts, you take a look at the company's price per share and look at the earnings per share. This number here is the multiple of earnings that reflect the value perceived by the market for the organization. And the point here is not whether it's 100 or 10 or 50, it's that it's high. So a product company tends to be high in valuation if it's doing well. Which the interesting thing is, how do you get the product? Well, you have to spend an awful lot of money to develop the product before you get the first dollar. So you're a pretty deep hole by the time you're starting to make any money. And that's why a lot of people don't choose to go into a product business. They stay or start in a service business. where it's all about how many people can you keep, how utilized, at what rate per hour, and then how fast can you grow that. So those are the things you look at, and the things you need to be good at are managing people against tasks on a schedule to accomplish a certain set of things by a certain time for a certain price. Then you have to be good at managing and developing client perceptions of what you're doing, and to get them to understand and value and appreciate what you're doing. Now, as I go through this, think of examples of companies and organizations that you know of that fit these. And also think about which one your organization most closely conforms to.
And Peter, they can put it in the chat with putting the model and then the
Yeah, put the
example.
model, like product, Microsoft, or whatever comes to your mind, one each. Now, an operation is something that it runs for you. So like a utility company, or a an outsourced operation, or even a SaaS model. And here, it's all about efficiency of operation and drive to scale. What you need to be good at is delivering sort of best-in-class functionality, whatever the service is. Do it as well as anybody else, or a little bit better, and then do it as efficiently as possible to make it as low cost to deliver the highest quality that's just a little bit better than everybody else, and then drive to scale, make it big. That's generally the theorem that underlies an efficient operating model. And then what's the key concern is, what's it costing you per unit of output? So per kilowatt hour, or for whatever it is you're doing, if you're running a food service, per person served. And then service levels. How responsive are you to questions that come in and problems that come up? Typically in these kind of operations, the margin is relatively much smaller than either the product operation or the service. A service business, if every dollar comes in, you've got to pay the people, you have the overhead. You might be, you're lucky at the end of the day to keep 15%, and your price to earnings multiple will be significantly lower than a product business. Still pretty good, but a lot more than an operation. Operations tend to be pretty thin businesses. Same thing with channels, even more so. The multiple on a channel is very small because the earnings are very small. You have a lot of volume going through, but most of it is to cover the cost of the merchandise going through, or whatever the thing is that's going through. So here you want to say, you need to be good at making deals or contracts to provide certain goods in a certain timely fashion, at a certain price, and certain quality, and then administering that process. And then a lot of times you have to inventory, or even pre-buy and store what you will eventually deliver. We've talked last time about Amazon being an example of this, and you know that their whole business is about having what they need to deliver in a place they can get it, and there's a huge distribution capacity componentry to their business. And what you want to be good at, what you want to watch is, how many contracts you have coming in, how much backlog do you have, and how much are people committing to buying in the future, so that you can know how much you need to have on hand to deliver. So it's a very thin margin business, and a thin valuation. And Amazon has sort of blown this model up. They make very little money, except when they want to show that they can, because they plow most of what they do back into the business, and their price to earnings multiple is stratospheric, because people just are so impressed with how well they're doing today, but even more how well they think they're going to do in the future. So that's sort of an aberration to the common channel model, but it's pretty remarkable. And then in terms of an exchange, you generally here you need to be good at whatever industry is being served by the exchange. So if you were doing an energy exchange or a utility exchange, you need to know about that industry really, really well. So you have to hire experts and expert practitioners. And what you're getting into is the efficiency of operating the exchange. And you have usually buyers and sellers in this logic component in the middle. So taxi drivers, riders in taxis, or people looking for rides, and logic in the middle. And the key is, how many people have signed up on both sides, how many buyers, how many sellers, and then how many transactions can you push through. And a lot of times there's a subscriber fee on either side and a transaction fee, and that's certainly a piece of the money going through from buyer to seller becomes captured by the exchange itself as its compensation for providing the exchange. So think of the New York Stock Exchange, for example. It costs a lot of money for a company to list on the exchange, and they pay that annually. It used to cost a lot of money to become a taxi driver. They had to buy a medallion. With Uber, it sort of blows that model up. But the principle is the same. It's just you don't have the fee on either side. You just have as many drivers as possible, have many passengers as possible, and get them to connect and take the rides, and Uber takes a little piece of what goes through. Are they profitable? Not yet. Will they be? Probably someday, could be. These kind of businesses are sort of TBD in terms of what they're worth. You could just say infinite because no one really knows, and the prices that people are paying to get invested in these companies is pretty significant. But the reality is they're pretty new and unproven and pretty speculative. So, do we have anybody say what companies they thought of? Let's see.
Yeah, Peter, we have a number
few.
of them on the.
Okay, do you want to read out a few?
Yeah, we have some really good, some so what you had, and some are doing, so it's under at 125. So Gina said the product was Epson Services,
Okay.
Drew, but you were talking, is that?
FI Consulting as a service.
Yeah, the service.
Product from Bob. The product is Uber. You mean Huber? Is that I don't know what that is, Bob.
Bob, you're on mute.
Are we all on mute?
Maybe.
Oh, right. Yep, so let me, unmute all. Got
Sorry
it.
about Uber is a building products manufacturer.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. And then GoDaddy in operation. Good point. Yeah, that's a good one. And UPS, Bob points out, as a service. What's the service? Yeah, because they're delivering what they're doing is delivering it from here to there, and you're paying them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
AARP channel, yes, connecting, basically selling insurance to old people like me. Amazon operation. I think some people would call Amazon a channel because it's connecting buyers and sellers more than an operation. Although when it does the Amazon Web Services, that's definitely an operation. Excellent. Well, good points, everybody. Here.
Peter, I just want to ask about the Spotify and Pandora, because that just came to me. Those are exchanges or channels?
Spotify. I'm not familiar. What is Spotify?
They're both music.
Yeah. How does their money flow?
It's a subscription. It's a subscription model.
Okay. Yeah. And do they make money with ads? Do you pay to be subscribed?
No, because it's free. There's a freemium model, and then that has ads. But then the premium model is a subscription. And
do they pay the authors of the sounds that they're paying a royalty there? So that's the royalty. Yeah, so if you want to have an artist list and then people buy, so it could be exchange, except that they're not really matching, are they? That's what I was concerned. They're not. Well, choose.
I think they are matching. You either select certain bands or kinds of music, and then they match you to music that you might want to hear.
That's true.
Yeah, you can think of it as an exchange.
Yeah,
I think it's more of an exchange.
Jim wants to know what Facebook would be. Anybody want to take that?
I said Russian operatives to him.
Say that again, Gene. I couldn't hear.
I said it was a channel for Russian operatives for sure.
Oh.
True enough. Right. Yeah, it's definitely not a service. What if it was a product? What would the product be?
I was thinking channel, just because it's a that connects the advertiser to the users, and then they get a percentage of whatever
Yeah,
advertising.
I think that's right. And I think when you have the advertising funded operation, then you need to consider like who's the customer. The customer is the ad, one who's making the ad. The product is really us, those who use Facebook. Seriously, because it's access to us for who's paying to be on Facebook, not us. The advertisers are. So the advertisers are the customers. We're the product.
Well, access to us is the
Access
product.
to us is
Access is the
really what
product.
they're doing. So yeah, I would say it's a channel. All right. Again, not so important to get it right, but to get a discussion going and to have everybody talk it through and see the same way. So here are some that we've identified before. I think we might even have shared these last time, but what I'm mostly interested in is what you think your businesses are. And did you close? Oh, I'm supposed to answer this now. So service. All right. Can you share the results of the poll, Joyce?
Yes, I'm going to end the poll
Yes.
and share the results. So,
Oh, there they are.
yep.
So we've got 38% product, 63% service. No one thinks they're a channel, an operation, or exchange. That sound right? All right. Well,
Consistent.
Jader, what did you say Rise was?
I wasn't sure between, well, and we've been talking about it and going through like all of them.
Right. Right.
But
So you're not sure yet.
Yeah, but I think I put service.
Right.
But I don't remember.
Yeah.
I might have put product.
I think it's a huge difference. Like I think of it more and more as an exchange where you have a supply of people who are really good at yoga and they're trained as teachers that want to teach but have nowhere to go with that to fulfill that need. And then you have the underserved resources at the middle schools that would be interested in having the teaching. And so what Rise does is match those two. It has teachers, schools, match, and you're being active in doing that. So I think it makes a lot of sense as an exchange, but I'm not here to force that on you. I'm just sort of suggesting it. Everybody likes what they've got. Interesting. Greg, what did you say CompuSearch was?
I said it's a product company. Now we obviously, have services that, support our product with our FedBid acquisition last year. FedBid is probably an exchange in putting reverse auction buyers and sellers together. But I said product as the primary.
I wonder, that may be right for CompuSearch, but what about your group?
Well, so our group, we're the civilian business unit, so we're still first, selling Prism and our Insight platform and apps. So those are products also. Big component of it is service, though. Half of our revenue is service.
In your group, do you get the revenue from the product?
We do.
Yeah. Okay. Then that would make sense. It's possible if you were just the services component, then you would be, maybe CompuSearch is the services are designed to get more value out of the product and sell more product or come up with new products. But if you were just a services group, you could be a service group inside of a product organization. That could still make sense. And I do think your authorizing environment will look forward to discussing that with you when you're ready.
Right.
All right. So let's take a second now and look. Well, more than a second. Let's take some time now and dig in a little bit more into the financials here. Again, we're not trying to turn you into financial analysts, but we're going to get some very basic terms and concepts across because they're so fundamental and important. A good way to look at it, and this is the one that's presented by Michael Gerber in a book called The E-Myth and the E-Myth Revisited. He says, think of an organization as a box, and money comes in for something that the organization provides. So that's the what. And then something comes out after you've covered the costs of doing, selling, and growing in the form of profit. Okay, and less comes out than goes in because you have to cover the costs of the box. And what you really want is for the ratio or the rate at which money comes out relative to what goes in to be a positive, first of all, so you have profit. Even if you're a nonprofit, you need profit in order to grow, in order to deliver more of what you're doing. And then you want to get ever more efficient at turning dollars coming in into dollars coming out, so revenue into profit. And the measure of that is called margin. This is a ratio, profit divided by revenue. So this number, little number divided by the big number. And then what you want is for all of those to grow. So you want the blue box to get bigger, you want the dollars coming in to be bigger, and you want the dollars coming out to be bigger, and even more than that, you want the dollars coming out to be bigger by more than the dollars coming in are getting bigger, which means you're getting even more efficient, so that ratio is going up. Profit as a percent of revenue is increasing. So a maturing organization strives for consistent and predictable, steady, and I know where I'm going to be, growth in revenue, profit, and margin. And the way we assess how we're doing is, at any given point in time on any of these metrics, is how are we doing over time? Is revenue consistently going up, or is it up and down, up and down? And if we said we're going to do something, how much did we do? And if others are doing a business like ours, how are they doing in terms of revenue, profit, and margin? All right, so unless anybody has any questions, anybody have any questions on that? We'll go one level deeper. Here's our box of revenue, green for money. Out of that, we take what it costs us to deliver that which was paid for by the customer to generate the revenue. We call those direct costs, or costs of goods sold. So in revenue, less cost of goods sold, or also known as direct costs, or the money that we spent in order to deliver the service or good, that's called gross profit. It's also sometimes called contribution to profit, or direct contribution to profit, or other names. But the important thing is the concept. Direct costs are important to keep track of, so that if you don't make money delivering something to somebody, then you can't make it up in volume, they say. For example, if you lose money in every deal, no matter how many deals you do, you're going to be losing money. So the idea is make money on deals and then do more of it, and then make more money by delivering the good or service for ever less cost. So, and then gross profit divided by revenue. So you take this big green box here, but over this bigger green box, what you initially started with, and divide gross profit into revenue, and you get gross profit margin, or contribution margin. So the margin implies the ratio. Some people get lazy and they just call gross profit margin or gross margin. So you have to watch it when you're talking to people, but now that you know how the algebra works, you can ask a question to be sure you're understanding what someone is saying. Go down one more level, and we're going to take out indirect costs. Indirect costs are the costs of supporting the business, or sometimes called overhead. So general management, having someone in charge and making sure everything's going right. The cost of selling, the cost of the building you're in, the cost of managing the people, hiring the people, taking care of the people, the cost of finance and accounting, and all the other support functions of a business. Remember, we said we want to have only as much of these support functions as we need to do the doing, selling, and growing that our organization is starving for, and a little bit to allow for growth and improvement in those systems. And everything else we do, we should do as little as possible just to get what we are doing covered. In other words, we're not, if we're in the business of building houses, we're not in the business of accounting. So we want our accounting business to be as small as possible, but we want it to be big enough to do the job that we needed to do to support the building houses, and no more. I say that because in some cases, people get confused, and all of a sudden, they think we ought to have as big accounting department as we can possibly have. If you're in accounting, that might make sense. It doesn't make sense for anybody else. Gross profit then is go one step is the operating profit after the indirect costs. So we get operating profit here. Earnings, it's often referred to as earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And if you were to break it here, earnings before interest and taxes, it would be called EBIT instead of EBITDA. And if you break it at the end, very end, it's just earnings after everything. So operating profit divided by revenue is the operating profit margin, or the gross operating margin. And then what we do is we have what's called non-operating costs, or the costs outside of the business, which would include things like interest, taxes, amortization, depreciation, things that don't affect the way the company operates or the organization operates, but that are real costs, but they're outside of the operating business. And that gives us net income, or what some people call profit, or just plain earnings. And then that number divided by revenue gives us net income profit margin, or profit margin. How's that leave you feeling?
Peter, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
On one of the earlier slides, you had the EBIT as a percentage and not because EBIT's typically a dollar amount, right?
It's actually, this is a good question, because you need to ask that question whenever you're looking at it or talking about it. Are you talking about the scale number or the ratio? As you see here, the technical definition is a ratio, but a lot of people get lazy, including me and most people, and refer to one or the other as is convenient, using the one term or the other and not being precise. So earlier we were talking about it as a ratio, and here we're saying EBIT is a scale number, but really it's earnings divided by revenue is the ratio. Earnings by themselves is the scale number.
Yeah.
So good question. Who's ringing a bell there? Do you want to put everybody on mute, Joyce? All right, so here's an example.
Peter, you're on mute now, I think, too.
Peter, you were on mute, now you're off.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at this example income statement that was in the Moodle assignment content preparation for today. Hopefully you got a chance to take a look at it and develop a sense for what it's saying. So could you use chat to tell us what story this chart tells? What do you make of it? What do you make of this business? Tell me something about it from what you see here. Lisa says it's optimistic growth projections. What do you mean by that, Lisa? Yeah, Paul notices the good growth. Lisa says it's optimistic growth. Why do you say that?
All right, I guess it's because they're projecting everything growing consistently. Each of the profit margin, the revenue, and the gross margin, I believe that I calculated, all growing kind of consistently.
The same basic rate. So you begin to be suspicious that maybe they just applied a growth factor to everything, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's a little scary. Jim, I think noted that the percentage, the profitability and the profit margin is going up nicely over time. But Lisa's saying, hey, this looks suspicious. What's going on here? What else tells you that this could be suspicious? Right. James just realized this is as of mid-2016. So 2015 is actual. 2016, let's say we're halfway through the year, is half actual, half forecast. 2017 and 18 are future. So what else does that make you think? Beth's saying they want to cut proportion of costs in the next 3 years. So they're lowering costs as a percentage of revenue, so they're becoming more efficient somehow. What would be a good question? What else do they have? What's that? How are you going to do that? Right. So if you are considering an investment in this company, you might say, okay, I noticed that. How are you going to do that? Somebody take a look at the revenue here. What else do you notice about the revenue? What do you notice from new large set dollars, 660 to 220? What do you notice there? Is that going up nicely? No. It's going down nicely, going down horribly. But all of a sudden it comes back up to what it was last year, or even not quite what it was last year.
Gonna recover.
You've seen that story before, right? So I would want to ask some questions like, well, if you just had that big downturn, what is going to make it go back up? What happened here? Or what's going to happen to change that? How about this jump? Going from 150-ish to over 1 million in 1 year. How many times have you seen that story? We call that a hockey stick, right? It's at one level and boom, it's got a big jump. And then it goes up again by 50%. That's a little suspicious. So I'd want to hear more about that. So that at the very highest level, it looks like a great story. But you wonder, if you have all these really great questions, which are exactly right. How do we know that's going to happen? And what proof is there? Like if we look backwards, what do we see leading up to now that makes us think these projections for the future are likely to play out the way they're presented? All right. So one of the crescendo points here is that multiple and hybrid models are risky, which have some implications. It's, why is that? Why do we want to stick with one model? And ultimately, the answer is that it's hard enough to succeed in one model rather than a hybrid model or a combination of models. Principally because you have to be good at too many things. It's hard enough to be good at a few things. Being good at more things makes it more difficult. It's hard to know what to watch. So when someone says, what's your profit margin? You have to, if you end up having to say, well, it depends what kind of revenue it is, that's not a very good answer to someone considering an investment in your company. So it really gets confusing. And if you go up to the highest level, you really become almost a conglomerate where you're managing multiple businesses which have different metrics, and you might as well think of it as a portfolio of businesses as opposed to one integrated business that's got some kind of a hybrid of operations going on. That said, if one leads to the other, then that can make more sense. So we have some part of our business is a product business in order to drive perhaps a services business. So it could be a product-driven services business. Now that's more rational, and we can make sense of that. So that's a hybrid that's rational. So just know that you're doing that. And if you're a product business, if you're a service business that becomes a product business, or a product business that becomes an operation, you do things to build something that you then run, that can make sense too over time. It may not have been what you thought of originally, but it is rational. Just think about it as you're going along, or perhaps as you're looking to the future and saying, what do we really want to be? And just know what you're doing, what it will take, and why you want to do it.
So Peter, could I add something here on this?
Yeah.
I've observed a lot through the years that there are really different competing imperatives in the sales or business development process, depending on whether you are in product selling or services selling. And they really are pretty different about how you approach the client. And here's an example of, you just get it conflated and you kind of do the wrong thing. Somebody who's in a product sales says, if I just had some glossies, I could walk in and sell the features and benefits of my product and I could do well. And he's probably right. But if the same person asks for glossies for services, it's not the same kind of selling.
Well, that gets back to the...
Here you are in your model makes a big difference for marketing and development.
Right. Angela, in the very beginning, Angela presented a productized service, which means you probably could have glossies for it. So in effect, you're taking a service, packaging like a product, and then presenting it like a product in order to get some of the benefits of being in a product business, such as a higher price for the same amount of services. So the product is giving you an advantage. So that's a good point that you make, but don't let it stop there. Keep going and say, how can we take the relatively less attractive financially services business, do some of the things that make a product business more attractive from a financial perspective to turn our service-based business into more favorable looking economics of a product business.
I just think it doesn't work as well to try to persuade the customer when you're trying to sell them a complex set of services to solve a complex problem.
They have to match. You're right. I mean, you have to get it to, like you even said that to Angela, you've got too many words here describing what you're doing. So push it up. Good points. The other thing is you need to be too good at too many things, and this is one of the reasons it's hard to be successful at one, because you have to be good at not just developing the product, but selling the product, servicing the product, supporting the product. And each of the businesses has their own version of those competencies. Very difficult to do them all, as well as you need to be successful in more than one business. It's hard enough to be successful in one. You just don't know what to watch to know how well you're doing. And resources get spread so thin that nothing gets the time and attention that it needs to be successful. But even big companies like IBM figured that out when it tried to go from hardware to running data centers to providing professional services. Oh, wait a minute, what are we? They wanted to take the M off and make it IBS, but that didn't go over very well in the marketing department. When we're working with the CEO and top team of an airlines, they were struggling with the full realization that an airline is an incredibly complicated business. It's actually several businesses. It's a food business, the reservation business, it's managing planes, it's baggage processing, it's distribution of flight routes and maintaining and servicing. It's incredibly complicated. So what are the airlines trying to do to deal with that?
Outsource.
Outsource, like, for example, what?
Baggage services, or the food business, or whatever, any pieces that are a commodity.
Yeah, and or eliminate it, outsource it or eliminate it, like food. Southwest says, who needs food? We got peanuts. People are just trying to get somewhere. They're not trying to get well fed on the way there. So yeah, there are all kinds of different plays to try to figure out a way to make it less expensive, easier to be successful in the business. Does anybody know, when we worked with this airline, we found out by working with them, the main thing that correlates with whether an airline is going to be profitable or not. What do you think it is? Jump in, anybody.
How on time they are?
Planes are full.
It has to do with the price of gas. It's all about the price of gas. All right, let's wrap up. All right, so the key tips are: keep it simple, play in large markets where there's infinite opportunity to sell, find an unfair advantage by using software, methods, or data to create an unfair advantage relative to competitors in the same market. Sell the value of what you're doing, not the way you do it. Be clear about the value proposition that you deliver, but also what you're trying to get in the way of value out of what you're doing, so you know when you can be done, and make sure everybody on the team is playing the same game. Did you get a chance to look at the disappearing revenue case for preparation today? What we'd like to do is break you out into your teams and let you spend a few minutes telling us which of these, in any of these three, they're all basically the same case, just tailored slightly for different realities. You're running an organization whose main income stream has suddenly disappeared. Boom, it's gone. What do you do? And we'd like to get a specific answer from each team if we could. So can we quickly break into teams and spend a few minutes and then come back with an answer? Joyce? Did we lose Joyce? Joyce, you're on mute.
Well, okay, I'm opening the teams now, and we'll leave them in teams for 10 minutes.
No,
okay?
not 10, 5.
5, sorry, 5 minutes. Okay,
or 3.
Thank you.
Bye.
3. Okay.
For some reason here, we have one iteration old version that we're working with. Do you notice that?
Yeah. Okay, so is the team, there's unassigned. Okay, so.
Okay, yeah, they're unassigned people there. Can you guys?
Yeah, the unassigned people: Angela, Bob, Brian.
You guys can work
Josh.
together.
No, Josh. Wait a second. Did I miss Josh? Whoops. Josh goes into FI Consulting. Sorry, let me add him in there. Okay. Okay. So I did not put Angela because Brent isn't here.
Right.
And then we have what we're calling our singles.
Because so the singles can work together. You guys can unmute them all and have them work together.
Yeah. So Bob, Brian,
Angela and Jadra.
Angela and Jadra. I'm just leaving you in this group. Should I just put them into another group, Peter? Because we'll need to talk about, yeah. Okay, so let me just do that into breakout group 3. Peter, did you take control back?
No.
No, okay, so it says join. Just a second.
Well, you 4 can just do it right here. What would you do, Bob?
Number one, I'm looking at this and saying the big constraint is you've lost your big ticket player, but you have other things in the fire. You need to go back and rework your existing client base to try and up sales and open opportunities there, as well as to turn around and grab some new business somewhere.
Right. Brian?
Sorry, I'm on mute. Actually had a very similar situation in our company a couple of years ago with the housing downturn. And our model was to go after a new client base, a channel that we hadn't tapped previously. So probably similar to what Bob has experienced with the construction world, but very real as far as that large loss of profitability and having to count on existing customers and then go after new.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Bob's saying get more from where you are. Brian's saying go get a new market. Angela?
I would say get your top team together and get clear together about what you would like to do moving forward.
So the first thing you would do is get the team together.
Yeah.
Jadra?
Right. You'd have to chat with your team. And then I have the first thing that I would imagine comes to Leela or Jay's mind perhaps would be a campaign, since we've done those in the past and get a little bit from a lot of people. Or go back to old leads or investigate new leads for donors.
Peter, the other thing I would say is we'd have to look at expenses and where we could trim any fat.
Right. So immediately try to strip down expenses. Anything at the margin that you can cut, you'd probably cut. Right. Anybody got any other ideas? What else would you do? What would you say to your staffs?
Are you guys willing to take?
You want to get everybody to take a pay cut?
Yeah.
Jada, what were you going to say?
Something empowering.
Brian, what did you do? Did you do a speech to make everybody happy or inspired?
It was actually a little bit of both. There was people that stayed and took pay cuts, and then there was other people that we ended up having to let go.
Right.
But it was one of those things that's, you try and empower the employees that stick around and hope that you can kind of weather the storm when that happens.
Right. All right. Can we get people back in, Joyce?
Yeah, they should be back in another 30 seconds.
Okay, great. Will one of you share a couple of points from here? Brian, do you want to do it?
Sure.
All right, when they come back. Either way, it's not a fun situation to be in, but it happens. Wow. You sure they're coming back?
Well, I said, okay, close one. Okay, I'm sorry, there. Now I broadcast the message. I need to get the close, sorry.
Bob, have you got a www yet?
I've got a basic one. I've got some feedback from some of my people, but not everybody.
Okay. Maybe you can share it with Brian and Jadra in the next part of this. Brian, do you have one?
I do.
Okay, good. So you guys can share.
Okay, I'll have to make the rooms again. So.
All right, is everybody back?
It should be.
Okay,
No,
everybody.
18 seconds, sorry, 18 seconds. You can't do it any sooner.
Yeah, that's the thing about the breakouts. You've got to end them a minute before you want them to done.
Yeah, I sent the message. I didn't, okay.
Didn't actually
so,
cut it. Well, let's go ahead and start. Christine, if you're willing to be called on, open up your video. Hey, David, what did your group come up with to do?
A few things. One, verify the facts, make sure that things really are as they seem.
Good point.
Manage morale. Identify.
Well, just give me one thing. That was good.
Okay.
Wait, although it begs the question, what do you mean by manage morale? So give some thought to that. Brian, you want to share from your group something?
Yeah, the first thing was to follow up with our team members, the executive level, and put a plan together.
Scott?
We talked about assessing other revenue streams.
Right. From current and new markets, right?
Yeah.
Paul, you want to add anything?
We looked at it from kind of the CFO point of view, and we have to look at how we can cut costs,
right,
and increase revenue to replace what was lost.
All excellent points. Let's consolidate a few that come up from time to time here. Look for every possible way to improve the situation. Raise more from existing revenue, you said that. Cut unnecessary expenses, someone said that. Increase efficiency of existing resources, do things with less cost. Get better terms from providers that you're buying from or partnering with, your landlord, your supplier, your banker, and do it right away because you have no time to lose. Another thing is never worry you're alone. Like you said, bring your inner team together and work together to come up with a plan that you can meet, even beat. And have honest conversations with your employees. It really doesn't pay to sugarcoat it, and you just got to tell it like it is and where you are in dealing with it. And it is a time where you tend to want to go and hide behind a closed door, but it's when you really need to push yourself to get out, let people know where things stand and where the opportunity is in this. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. If you read the optional article from Leading at the Edge, the story of the woman CEO from AIG and how she used it as a moment to come out and really get on a good track. It's a good example of that. Have an emerging plan to work together, rise to the occasion, pave the way forward. So it's a great opportunity for dynamic leadership. Next, the one question here is begged by this one. Get to the right size fast to prepare for death by 1,000 cuts. Would you right size? So let's launch the poll. Did you launch that, Joyce?
Yeah, I'm trying to get that poll number, Peter.
Just at the top, there's a black arrow you can.
Yeah, that's what I'm having a problem with that.
Well, just do yes or no on the chat then. Would you right size?
Just do yes or no on the chat, please, because this arrow isn't.
Would you right size? What does that mean? Would you cut? You've lost a third of your revenue or so. Does that mean, will you find a way to get through without cutting, or will you cut? Just give me some yes and no's. Yes. Greg's going to cut. Paul's going to cut. Gina's going to cut. Christine's going to cut. Everybody seems to want to cut, except Beth. Jim would rather not, but he would. All right. So most people are leaning towards, okay, I have to do the hard work. Bob's saying no. All right. Let's look at what happens if you do or if you don't. This chart comes from 2008 when the financial crisis came out with Sequoia, which is one of the most impressive, prestigious venture firms out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. They said this to all of their portfolio company leaders. They said, look, we're in a tough situation. This is the point at which the tough situation kicks in. And the question is, what do you do, or how deep do you cut? And if all you do is slow down the rate of expense, technically that's a cut, right? Not spending as much as you said you would. You're spending more, but at a slower rate. And then things stay hard, and you say, oh, maybe we got to cut a little bit more. And then things still don't get better enough, and we end up having to do a RIF. And we only cut a few people, and all of a sudden we think we're going to be okay, but then we're not. We have to do it again and again and again, and pretty soon we're dead. So by trying to save the jobs of a few people, we ended up all losing our jobs, is that story. The other story is to cut right away. We call it shrink to size. Get to the size which is putting the cost structure within yourself. Now that you're 2/3 of what you used to be, you should probably be at 2/3 of the staff or something close. And you want to make sure you keep the right people, but you're actually doing everybody a favor by letting some people go so that you can then come out and be on a tear going forward as things recover. So this is an argument for not just cutting heads, but cutting costs, restructuring your thinking, and realizing that we just aren't the same company that we were when we are a third less revenue to work with, or less income, money coming in to work with.
Could I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So I understand this model, and obviously that makes sense, but the one piece to me that's left out of the equation is, how can you forecast the future? Like, how do you know that what you're seeing right now is really reality?
Well,
because there's also a cost in replacing those people that you're like.
Sure. So you have to look at it and decide. But the reason I took examples of 25%, 30%, those are huge decreases. There's really not much question that the world is fundamentally different. If you're talking about a 10% cut or 15%, maybe even a 20%, at the lower numbers, it makes it a little bit harder. But when it's that deep, it's pretty obvious you got to do some restructuring. But you're right. I mean, ultimately, you can't predict the future. Part of what you're getting paid for is to do responsible things in light of reality and what you think you can make happen. Just don't kid yourself is the real point. And the general guidance, especially in 08, was let's overreact. Let's cut. Let's stay profitable. Let's cut. Get to the point where we know we're safe, and then we can come out strong. All right. Thanks. Now, a couple quick tips on financial performance. Prepare your financial goals right from the beginning. So know how big you want to be, know how profitable you want to be, what kind of profit margins do you want to have, how valuable do you want the organization to be, and then consider that in light of what you have to work with in terms of people and money and other resources and your tolerance for risk. And based on all of that, choose an operating model. Which kind of business would we be able to be comfortable working in? And then develop and install your do, sell, and grow systems consistent with that model based on what the world has learned about running that kind of business or operation. And then prepare your financial plan that is rational relative to best practices for that sort of business. And if you're going to do something different than what the world has learned how to do, just know that you are and why you think it will be successful. And constantly monitor how you actually do relative to what you said you would do in terms of a projected performance against plan, against the past, and against peers. And then when things happen, take actions that you need to stay within plan. And then if necessary, shrink to size, prepare to grow, and then grow. So the conclusion from this section is financial reports are important. They don't have to be intimidating. It's just math, mostly algebra, simple algebra. It's hard enough to be successful at one business, so why be in many? Performance compared to past, plan, and peers is what matters. And leading in the face of adversity takes real guts, real fortitude, but is really an opportunity. Like I say, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. With that, what we want to do is take the rest of our time, most of the rest of our time, to split out. I know we're running a little bit behind, but not too bad. And have you take 10 minutes in your own teams, and the singles can stay with me and be working together or on their own on their WWW how and how well, with the idea that we'll then, after 10 minutes, move into breakout groups where you will brief each other. So take 5 minutes to brief your WWW how and how well, get feedback on it. So on the listener side, remember to draw out, think critically, develop a point of view, provide feedback, lean in, force yourself to do that, and give some advice. And then the presenting team should make it clear that you're open and interested in the input, draw out the listeners as best you can, make observations, what's working, what's not working, and what you're doing so you can revise for the next time. And draw out your comments and questions, suggestions, and feedback. And then make the changes after today to reflect what you've learned from doing this. And then switch. and we'll call you back. Well, what we'll do at the 10-minute mark is Joyce will merge the groups. And I know it's not showing here because we ended up somehow losing it, but we're going to have Through present to Sita, and Rise will join that group as to hear either, and if there's room for Rise to present again, fine. Otherwise, Through presents, then Sita presents, and then Rise already presented last week, but could go again if there's time. And then CompuSearch will present first to FI, and then switch if there's time. And then Star reports out first to Signature. Okay? And then we'll come back, make a note or two about how it went. You can let us know. And Joyce, can you put people in the groups now? Okay. So Jadra, Angela, Bob, Brian are the singles. You are going to present to each other. You're welcome to take a few minutes now to work on your own, or to ask me questions or ask questions, and we can give you feedback, and then you can work with each other. Or you can go join one of the other groups if you really want.
I'm fine here. I don't have a problem with that. I want to bring up my information so I can take a look at it and just see where I'm at and see whether there's anything I can update before I go.
All right, so take a few minutes. And Jadra, do you want to work on yours at all, or you're where you want to be? You're on mute.
Oh. Yeah, I wanted to add something to the thing I was working on this week.
Okay.
I have to find it.
Okay, Angela, do you want to take a shot at trying to make the what simpler? I don't know exactly how to do that, because that was the main feedback.
Okay. How long are we taking? 3 minutes, 5 minutes?
Oh, Joyce, you're on mute.
Another 8 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, I've got all my stuff where I was looking for it, so.
Ready to roll?
I'm available. The rest are.
You guys are welcome to go ahead and do it right here, then, right? Joyce?
Okay, we're listening.
Yeah, if you want to share your screen, go ahead. You got the team right here.
And desktop.
And let me tell you, I will try to be quiet. You guys take the role you would normally think I would take. You go for it.
Okay, so what I did was I solicited to 3 other parties for information. In the first go round, they get back to me, and it was pretty consistent that the what is, do we do residential remodeling? Most everybody was pretty much on target as to who. It's basically homeowners. And the third was with the confusing, why? And so we solicited more feedback on the why. The original answers, as you can see on the screen, are just strikeouts. And the second answer was a little deeper from everybody, but we still don't have consistency. And we still don't have everybody's reply on this. So I'll try and make this so that you can see as much as possible here. And can I right size this a little bit better? That may be too small.
Read it.
I got to get it big enough so that I can see it. Okay. Okay, so our first participation said that their first answer was on the why, because Star Construction sees itself different from competitors based on X, Y, and Z. His second response was, Star Construction provides these services because we have a passion for home improvement, and when customers invest in their home, they deserve the peace of mind that their investment is basically sound. He also went on to add, the above makes the most impact to me, and I personally like to isolate the bold things, which is peace of mind in their investment. On our second participant, we've gotten one answer back, which was provide services because we have a passion for home remodeling. When customers invest in their home, they deserve peace of mind that their investment, and I have to move things around on the screen so I can see. Peace of mind that their investment will increase. Third one was first part was Bob loves what he does, helping homeowners achieve their dreams for remodeling and adding to existing space. The revision on that was people buy from people they like, and Bob is a likable person. He is knowledgeable about his trade and delivers the product on time and on budget. And then the fourth commentary, if I can move down so I can see it, because we have the skills and tools to do it all. We enjoy the work and can help homeowners to have a better place to live. And I need to move this screen one more time. The advice was provide easy procedures that homeowners believe will give them the best value for dollars on their home improvement remodeling services. Act as a guide, coach, counselor, or advisor on material selections, construction techniques, procedures, and costs for homeowners unfamiliar with construction, and deliver construction services based on mutually established scope and standards at a fixed price. So those are the pieces that I've got so far, and I'm still trying to get a more concise idea of why people buy that we can all get behind and is a little easier to handle. So any feedback is very much welcome.
Yeah, I think the first piece of the feedback and the man scrolling up, I think it was the first person that went back and reiterated and put in bold what they were thinking.
Yeah.
On the right track, because his first answer was more why Star Construction is doing it versus what value the customer is getting out of the service. So I think when he went back and bolded that and everyone was on the track of the value that the client is getting out of it, is better than why, is more aligned with what we're doing than why Star Construction itself is in the business.
Okay, Peter, I think everybody's back.
Oh, okay. But have they?
Well,
They now need to break out into groups,
Yeah,
across groups. So go ahead and do that.
I have to go do that. Okay.
And
I'm just
then
gonna,
our singles group will continue when everybody breaks.
yeah, you have to bring them back in order to
Regroup it, right?
in order to regroup it. So that's what I'm just doing.
Go
now.
ahead.
You'll be out shortly, people. Okay. Okay, I left Brian and Bob and you here. Wait a second.
Should I be going to through or should I stay here?
Just a second. I have Phi and CompuSearch should be together. And then I needed to,
Yeah, you should go with through to hear them out, Angela.
yeah, Angela, oh, not joined. Okay, Angela, I've got to get you over there.
Thank you for your comments here. Well, I'll work.
Yeah, it's not letting me move to, you're going to through. You're going to through.
Jadra,
Oops. Where did,
you put Angela. It looks like Angela went there.
yeah, Angela's there. So who's left? No, everybody's.
Well, Brian and Bob are here.
Jean,
Brian,
yeah, oh, Gina, Angela, Gina, Jadra, and James are in through right now.
Well, Jadra may want to be here since she just heard Bob go through. You may want to put her back.
Okay, so I'll move Jadra.
Bob, that was a good comment from.
I can move Jadra. I can't move Jadra back. I have to move her to Phi, CSS, or singles. You want me to move everybody else into singles?
To send her a message that she can unjoin. She can break.
Okay.
If she'd rather join this group and continue with us,
okay,
she should leave the breakout.
Okay, let me do that.
While she's doing that, Brian, sorry about your connection. You make sure everything else is closed down.
Yeah, I am. I don't know why it went thin on me, but I'm good now. So
okay, it might help to also cut the video. Bob, what did you hear Angela saying there? Just make sure it was a good point.
Well, I was a little confused, and I was going to ask for clarification.
Yeah, I think I got it. So go ahead.
I think she was saying that the first guy was on target as to why we sell.
Right.
And the other folks were on target as why the customer buys.
Right. And I think her point was that the first person did what you just said, but then they revised it to be a little bit clearer about why the customer buys. And that's really what we're after here, not why you do it. It's interesting, but not really helpful to building the business.
Okay. So that was my question to these people when I asked them for the revision was, why do people buy from us?
Yeah.
And these were the things that I got back from them. So again, it's trying to get a clear, concise.
Well, Bob, here's the thing. You're doing a good job getting the input, but now you've got to work with it and take it to the next level and then play it back to them. Okay.
Well, yeah, and again, I was looking for more input from the fourth party that hasn't returned input.
Before you do that. Okay.
Before I did that, yeah.
Yeah. Brian, what sticks out for you?
yeah, so I was actually going to say the same thing because it feels like everybody's why is really an opinion as to what they feel they do well instead of
what the customer thinks.
What the customer looks for. It's not. It's the opinion of what you guys do well instead of the value that you guys provide to the customer, the reason why they select you. The other thing I was going to say about it is and I'm still collecting information on my side, but you moved past the what and the who pretty quickly because you felt like those were pretty solidified, but it still seems like the people that you receive feedback from, you guys all still have sort of a different outlook on those things. Do you know which one of those you guys have kind of settled on?
Well, I think everybody is singled out residential remodeling through it, or remodeling, all right, and we deal with homeowners. So I'm just cutting the words out. We're residential remodeling. So I think all four basically express that. And then who do we work for? Well, it's the homeowner. The end user is the homeowner in most cases. And I think everybody kind of expressed that. The wording may have been a little bit differently, but I think we all would agree that bottom line is we're working for the homeowner.
Yeah, and the thing that I would say to that is, you know, like in the first guy, his who is homeowners willing to spend between a certain amount of money, whereas somebody else's who is someone who sees value and quality in the craftsmanship. It's not. The who is defined as the homeowner, but it's not defined as to who the true who is. I guess it's not. You know,
it doesn't express the value proposition.
Well, it doesn't express who to call. Like let's go suppose we wanted to drive to go sell your services somewhere. Who would be the ideal customer? You say the homeowner. So do I just call any homeowner? Which ones in particular? Is it ones that have owned their homes for so long? Is it ones that have had a prior home, done a renovation, and learned from that experience that it's good to get somebody who knows what they're doing? You know, they're sort of characteristics. Where are they? Are they in Texas or are they in New England?
Right.
So, you know, I think there's a lot of more characteristics that could help. Think of it, we're going to do a mailing or a what are the profile of the person we're after?
All right, understood. And I think, you know, that drill down was something that we're moving towards.
Yeah.
Not necessarily at this point. I felt we just kind of had to see that we're all moving in the same direction.
Yep, good point. One thing I would point out, and then I'll give you a suggestion on how to work it. A couple of the points sounded like they were specific to you.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea of this is to build a business that is not specific to Bob, because Bob's not going to be there someday.
Right, and that was one of them that I was trying to wean that.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I almost thought you were going to say, we want to keep Bob happy. But we want customers that like working with Bob because he's a good guy. That's like not going to work when Bob's retired.
No.
So I think that's your point, to work with the people. So we got to get, pretend I'm not here. How's it going to work? Why is it going to continue? We could get another charismatic old guy, but that's probably not going to work either.
Yeah.
So anyway, it sounds like you're on a good track here and a good process. One thing you might do, one thing I've done in a similar situation, let's put it that way, is taking all their answers like you've got here, bring them all together in a room, have curated it a little bit, like sort it, streamline it, put the ones you think more people are saying than others at the top, and have a list for each of a list for the whats, a list for the who's, a list for the whys, and go through them each, ask clarifying questions, make comments, add new ones, consolidate, make points, and then edit it down. Say, okay, boom, if we got it, do we agree with this now? And then you nail it. That is a way to work it. Another way to work it is for you to take all this input and come up with the consolidated one that you like, and then start with that one, or some combination of those two things. But that's probably in there in your next step somehow.
Yeah, one of the reasons I went to an Excel spreadsheet was because I could manipulate this stuff a little easier.
Yeah. And then we can go back to the PowerPoint when we're done.
Okay.
Brian, you want to share yours?
Sure. I think I get Bob. Can you unshare your screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to get there and stop share. There we go.
Thank
All
you.
right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yes, sir. So here's mine that I originally did. I've submitted for feedback, but I've not gotten it yet from
me,
from you, or from my coworkers that I've asked them for. So
when did you submit it?
The day that it was due.
For some reason, I haven't seen it. I'll check on it.
Okay, I can resend it too.
Well, let's go at it here for a second.
Okay. So Signature Companies provides what I said. We're a full service provider of cabinetry and custom built-ins. For who? New home builders in the Mid-Atlantic region. Why? To provide services to home builders who see the value in design and install services in a market dominated by manufacturer direct suppliers. And the why is important because in our area, it's not like this in all areas, but in our area, home builders buy almost primarily directly from manufacturer direct relationships, cabinetry suppliers. We're a turnkey company. We provide design, but we also provide the delivery, install service, the project management of the cabinetry portion of a house.
Okay, so when you say what, you're now explaining the what more? I would put that in there.
Into my what?
You have full service provider, and now you're telling us what that means? Take out the phrase full service provider and swap in what you're telling us now.
So that's part of my why?
Part of your what?
No, I know. I'm saying what I'm talking about now is my why. So that would be
but I'm saying you're describing it in your why, but it's really a what.
Okay.
So project management, install, all that stuff goes up in the what.
Okay.
And the why, I'm still not clear on. Like, is why? Well, okay, so you're saying they hire you because they don't want to just buy the thing; they want to get it in.
Well, they want help with. They don't have inside. They're not necessarily designing with an outside design firm or an outside architecture firm. We're inside the process with them doing the design of their kitchens, and then we're also the ones delivering and installing where.
So they're sort of outsourcing that part to you.
Correct. Instead of doing it in-house.
So you're providing an extended labor force. You're providing a product selection and installation.
Correct.
And you're also have a product selection that's price point wise, something that's competitive for them.
Correct.
That would drive a little bit of the who, though. Like, what end of the market are you talking about? High end, middle end, low end?
Yeah, we actually work with all three. And we carry multiple cabinet lines for that reason. We work with guys building $180,000 townhouses, and we work with guys building $10 million homes.
Okay. So the home builder that retains you has essentially decided that they don't need themselves to have a way of doing what you do, and it's not it's to them it's a commodity offering, and or even they want you because you provide a premium offering, and it's efficient and effective, and they can dovetail it into what they otherwise provide to the home builders, right?
Yep.
So when you say see the value, I would like you to explode that. What way, right? Like I just was saying, you get a premium offering for a decent price and they know it's going to work. What is the value? That's kind of what we're getting at. The why is all about the value. So what is that value? And it's design and install services, but what about them? It's quality workmanship, on time, on budget. They get the right choices. They can get anything up and down the line. Whatever it is that's making that, whatever service is that drives that value and why needs to pop out here more.
Okay.
And this competitive element here, dominated by manufacturers, direct suppliers. So what problem does that present?
For us as a company?
No, for the buyer. That why they go to you instead of that?
Because we'll handle the service end of it, the install service aspect.
Install service?
Yep.
If you didn't do it, they would either have to, the home builder would have to do it, or they'd have to find some other person to do it.
Correct.
And why don't the home builders do it?
What's that?
Why don't home builders do it themselves?
Primarily because of the quality of person that they have to hire in a punch out position, the skilled,
those are some things could go in here.
Okay.
And then why would they go to you instead of somebody else?
Okay.
Well, let's answer that though. Why would they?
Oh, well, a couple of different things. As far as the install goes, because of the quality that we have.
You get a track record?
Correct. The level of installers that we have, we're one of the first companies in this area to provide install.
So you've been doing it the longest.
Built that way.
You've been doing it the longest. You've got a track record.
Yep.
And they can check on that in some authoritative source.
Correct.
I would blow that out a little bit.
Okay.
#1 rated, #1 longevity, #1 rated in such and such a place. I mean, that's pretty good stuff. Largest, best, most efficient, whatever. The other thing could be you're good at handling customized requests, or maybe you don't.
And we do. I mean, that's part of our design process where.
Well, that should be in here then.
Yep.
So you want to blow out the design bit as well.
Okay.
So I'll look for it to see why I didn't get it, but let's do a redo on this and shoot it over again if you want.
Yeah, you got it, definitely.
Yeah. And Bob, when you're ready, I'll take a look at. Just shoot me yours and let me know you sent it, and I'll look at that as well.
All right, yeah, I haven't done that yet. I'm just, because some of the things that we spoke about are things that I've actually spoken with other people about as far as the geographic area we're trying to shoot for, the demographics financially that we're looking at.
Right.
And we're looking at a shift on that stuff. So, I mean, it's trying to just to consolidate that, but I was looking for more of a group consensus at this point as to.
You're working a process. That's good. Are you, Brian, are you working with others, or is this just all out of your head?
This has been in my head. I have the feelers out for my other office personnel to fill this out. I haven't got it back yet.
Who do you, I forget, you're not the owner. You report to somebody, right?
I do.
Have you got their input?
She has it, and she'll actually be my executive, which I need to send over to you for.
Oh, do that. Yeah, do that. Yeah. Bob, did Michael ever say yes? Or?
Yes, he did, as far as I know.
He never said no?
He turned around and said he questioned whether the timeline and so forth, and I explained yes, and he agreed to it.
Great.
I told him, he's my business coach.
Yeah.
All right. So I just told him it'd be a continuation of the coaching session, and he'd be on the clock. So
yeah. And Brian, what's it? I know Bob's. What's the name of your person?
It's going to be Mary Jean Helton. Helton.
You can shoot me something on that.
Yep.
Does she have other divisions underneath her that are parallel to you?
She does not. She's the vice president of our division, and then there's another division, but it does not go under her.
Well, what else reports to her other than you?
Well, she's the vice president of our kitchen division, so she oversees
sales,
designers, and operations.
Does she do sales?
A little bit. We don't really truly have an outside sales force, to be honest.
Okay. Are there any home builders that don't outsource like you do, like they're doing to you, like very high end, very large niche providers? What?
Are there other builders in our area that do not? Yeah. So large, the guys that we can't go after, the guys that we can't compete with, are large national builders, guys that.
So let's put something in the who that excludes them.
Okay.
Because you want to have the who to the point where you could turn it over to someone who is going to go help you find the next customer.
Everyone will be here in 6 seconds.
Yep. And know who to call or who not to call. And knowing who not to call is often as important as who to call. Welcome back, everybody.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah. Jamie, that's a big smile. What are you laughing at?
Gina, we were still talking our half of things, and Gina just said, but Jamie, I wonder if you've used up all the time.
and then literally we got brought back.
Okay, well, did you get any feedback?
Oh, we got very good feedback.
Excellent.
It was just one way, unfortunately. So we didn't get to help Angela out at all.
Okay, well.
You guys helped in the chat earlier.
And yeah, she's already been helped and could use any amount you want to give her any time. Okay, great.
They did have a good issue there. You want to bring it forward? The one about the admin services from CSS and 5?
Yeah, I think one of the we were showing our do sell grow, and one part was when we expand, but we don't have capacity to meet one of the needs that we identified by the clients. We had a kind of a decision box that said that we want to expand down into our grow portion, which is just the find hire outside resources, acquire new technology, something to that effect. And maybe there's more to it than that, the HR component of getting all that together and how
Absolutely.
we can
So
identify that.
as you start to wander into providing yet another service, which means more competencies, and you got to recruit them, develop them, deploy them, and utilize them, and it gets to be another whole, and it could be a completely different business in the end. So the question is, why would you do that, other than to keep a client happy? But maybe you'd want to keep them happy so they'll buy more of what you really want to be doing. Anyway, that's a good question. Others want to tell us what they experienced in the breakout. How did it go is my question. Do we have everybody?
We talked a lot.
Other than that, Greg, what did you think?
Yeah, so I mean, we got some good feedback from the FI folks. We really had just sort of switched over, so it was also pretty close to one way in ours, and we went through fairly quickly. But in terms of our WWW, we had spent a little more time on, so but got some good initial thoughts. Our do grow sell was sort of a very first pass at it.
Right.
We spent more time on the WWW.
Good. Did you get any benefit out of the time alone in the group? Like you had asked for more time alone.
Yeah, because I think for us, when we think about it in the midst and the stream of consciousness as we're going through these topics, it's just nice to do that as
right.
a focus group team. So yes.
Hey, Bob, you want to tell a little bit about what happened in our session, your single session?
Yeah, well, basically I presented the information that I had collected from input sources and reviewed WWW and get some good feedback about nailing it down and getting closer to a consensus and offering the feedback that I've collected back to the group again and do another rehash and bring it through. And it was insightful because now there are things that I can add to the who as well as focus on the why in our group. And the feedback was nice and direct and nice and clear and quick.
Nice and direct. That's code for brutal.
No. I honestly think that you get more value if we treat this like kids at the playground.
Exactly.
And it's just, no, do it this way. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Ryan, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we spent almost all of our, we did spend all of our time on the who, what, why. And I was definitely way too generic and broad with my who, what, why, and I can be a lot more specific. And a lot of the things were very good advice as far as how I can break out some of those points a little bit better.
Hey, Josh, tell us what you got out of it.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I think we didn't get very far. We got like halfway through our WWW, but it was good to hear somebody else's WWW first and understand their business and the challenge they have with drafting this.
Right.
So I think
that's an important point, because remember, when you're learning to do one, it helps to see others and to have thought critically and seeing how others think critically and provide feedback on that. So you can get almost just as much out of it, because now you can ask yourself the same questions. Anyway, I think that was a good experience. It seems people got a lot of value out of it. Let's celebrate that. And we're getting close to wrap up time anyway. We can switch into throwing it open for comments, questions, and reflections about the whole session, not just what you've just been through. But so feel free to comment on more about what you've just been through or any part of the session today, and we'll throw it into our final steps, maybe for 5 minutes, and then we'll get ready for next session. Beth, what's going on in your head?
Well, I do think the feedback that we got from our who, what, why is that it was too generic, and I'm just trying to think about how to unwind that. And this software solution thing, it's interesting. We're trying to fit ourselves into a product box, but I'm beginning to believe that we might be services. I don't know. We'll see.
We could be, go Paul. It could be services that are closely related to a product. Because you're not going to be
Oh,
generic
it
services.
definitely is. That's why the term's software solution, because we were trying to, because I really don't believe we sell shrink wrap, and I don't think the company works that way. But and so the measure that you have of how many salesmen we have and how many sales we get a day or whatever, I'm not sure that would work, at least in our business unit. I don't know
No,
that.
right.
But I'm finding this all very interesting. I'm still just sort of digesting it all, but it's been helpful. Thank you.
Great. Scott, David, anything you want to share?
Yeah, I've got a question for you. You mentioned earlier when we were talking about business models and times when it makes more sense to where you could combine it if you have sort of a product business model and that helps inform or drive services, then it makes a little bit more sense. I think that's sort of an issue that we're dealing with at FI. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit about when it does make sense, or what are the pitfalls of making that sort of transition, or what needs to happen?
Well, I think is it a transition, or is it really?
It's not a transition, but it's just trying to.
Right. You're not going to become a product company. You're not going to become a product company. What you're trying to do is come up with something that distinguishes what you do from anybody else. So basically the product becomes a highly leveraged form of your knowledge and what you know how to do and what you do. It's now in a package. So you can deliver all that know-how for a price that is attractive to the customer. They don't have to pay you top dollar to figure it out for them because you've already figured it out and you put it in a box in some form or fashion. So you want to get leverage out of that. And you get leverage in several ways. You get leverage on delivery. It's more efficient and cheaper to deliver it. It's cheaper to sell it because you have something to point to and say, look, we've done this several times. We know how it works in situations like yours. Boom, there it is. And it's less expensive to grow because it's easier to train people when you're training them in a specific technology or product offering that you have institutionalized how to learn about it. So all that gives you leverage. And you want to use that leverage to grow your business, which is the services business. You're not going to become a product business, and that would just be kind of a bridge too far for your organization. So I think it's wise to look at it as you're developing packaged offerings, which are highly leveraged forms of knowledge to lower the cost of delivery, sales, and growth to drive services.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's your formula. That's what you're trying to do. So you're a little bit of a hybrid in a sense, but it's really a services business that's powered by an offering. I mean, you could, if you were Roman and the team at the top and they said, we've got something that's so good and so great, we're going to spend $1 million and turn this into a flywheel that we can sell, to thousands of organizations, for example, and our services business will become incidental and an ad hoc kind of thing on the side. That's completely different. You're not doing that.
Right.
You're still the services business trying to lower the cost of selling and delivering and growing through packaging of your knowledge in a form you can sell. Like what Gina was saying earlier, sort of a productized service. But in fact, you may actually have software in it, right? Or data or methods or other forms of knowledge. Does that help? Somebody else asked a question. It might actually have been you. No, it was either David or Josh. You asked a question in the feedback. Do you remember what you asked? I know it was interesting and I didn't get to answer it yet. Maybe you could bring it up here if it's on your mind.
I think I asked a question that was purposefully vague or broad and saying, what is your experience working with small companies less than 20 million that have tried to do this hybrid approach with 2 or 3 business models?
Definitely. Well, it's good experience with services organizations that get leverage from intellectual property, data, method. It's a very good model. It's much easier to sell in the end and to grow and to deliver when you have a starting point that is clear and you can point to it, you can update it, you can maintain it, as opposed to just services. So we've had success with that with every service business we work, no matter how small. And no matter how small a service business we have, our instinct is to try to find that pony inside there. Like, what is the thing that we've learned and done that is replicable, that we can turn into a flywheel? So that if you look at it hold on a second, I'll show you something. If we go to Intellivan for a second, I'm going to show you the flywheel. This is a very powerful flywheel effect. We try to get this in every business. And we first did it with the services business and then do it over and over and over again. And the good thing about it is it takes a small one and turns it into a big one, which I think is what you really want. So if you get here, how to drive sales in a services business, what you're doing is this is a project that you've done with a client over time. You've delivered some value and you got paid for it. You want to make it longer. You want to make it bigger because the project gets longer, project gets bigger. That's more money. You're delivering more value. You're getting rewarded for that. You also want to take what you've done there and put a ribbon around it and then manage that to find a new client like the one you've just done and do it again. And then you want to find all such clients. And now you're turning a project into an offering, into a business with a flywheel. And you just do this over and over and over again. If you don't do that, you've got to find business by some other way. Let's go find somebody with a problem and solve it. That's very hard to do. It's very expensive. It's very risky. You spend all the money selling before you deliver. So what we're trying to do is take the work that you're doing, the best work you're doing, and say, well, if this client needed it, probably all clients need it. And we're also trying to figure out how to make what we're doing ever more valuable and then package that into the offering and then develop this flywheel. And oh, by the way, while we're there, we will find all the other opportunities at that same client organization to do something similar, and each of these can become flywheels. And this is how we see service businesses grow, driven by packaging of what they've done before that's valuable, that they've done well, and that others need. Make sense?
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think my follow-up question to that would be, and we can just put it on hold for now so that others can jump in, but it's sort of like what are the growing pains and what are the ways that people can get through those? Because it seems like we're in that phase where, we've identified some things we want to put a bow around, but then it's a matter of really getting that to take off and get the value out of that. So I'd be curious what the pro tips there would be.
James, do you want to weigh in? Did we lose James? Yeah, he's there.
No, I'm here.
No, you don't want to weigh in, or no, you don't want to be here.
Well, I do have some thoughts on that. One of the things that my observations on that would be, don't try to do several of these things at one time. Do one, get it done really well, and make sure it's working before you worry about moving on to another one, because trying to do 5 at once is really hard.
That's a good point. The other thing is the way you learn how to do this stuff is by going out in front of customers. Customers will take you where you need to go. Follow the money, talk to customers, take their feedback, and iterate with them. Trying to do it all in the back room and getting it right will make it perfectly wrong for everyone. I mean, it's perfectly right for no one. What you want to do is get engaged with people who are the leaders, the beneficiaries, and you will learn it all by working directly with them. Those are 2 points. We could go on forever on that, and we would love to do that with you, maybe outside of the.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's helpful.
So we're at the sign-off point. Does anybody else want to have we have the feedback open. Next session is open. Here's session 5. We're going to talk about leaders and leadership teams and alignment of the top team. We have a really interesting case here that's based on a real experience called the Overrun CTO. Look at that and be prepared to work on that in group. What I think we'll probably do is break out into what we call fishbowl, where everybody is in the same room, but half of the group is working on the case in front of the rest who are observing the work. And then we'll have a iterative, the team that's working on it will come up with an answer. The observers will come up with comments and reactions to that. And then we'll talk, Joyce and I will comment on top of all of that. Bring to session a stick figure of a leader in action in any form you want, on a napkin, on a slide you want to share. Just bring that, and you will be working in teams to come up with a consolidated figure. So work on your own to come up with that figure to start with. And you probably want to get to the point of nailing the first part of your presentation, which would be the www and the whatever you want to say about do, sell, grow, and something on financials. I have the notion here also in this section of who we're counting on for what. So in your top team, no one does it alone. You need a combination of skill sets. One person is not enough to run an organization. Even two is too few. Generally, it's three or more. So at your organization, who are you counting on to do what for success? And this chart here is very interesting. Some have said it's the most valuable page in the book, which is what is it that the top person in the organization is counted on to do them for themselves. So and take a look at that. And then the feedback for this session is open here. If you want to open it and check and verify that it's open, and go ahead and take a whack at it and get us your feedback. That would be great. And if you want, you can go back and study any or all of this conversation from today. I'll put it out as soon as it comes back from Zoom. And you'll notice it has a closed captioning feature now, as well as a transcript, and use those to find the place in the video you want to be and have at it. Okay? We're a minute or two over, so let's call that a wrap. We'll stick around and leave the session open. If you want to continue to meet or work or break out, just let us know.
Right. Good session, Peter.
Thanks, Joyce.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Peter.
Hey, Josh, did you want to cover something?
No, sorry. I was actually talking to, is it James? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, James.
Yeah,
we text with him.
Yeah, we were having a conversation on the side, which is nice. I didn't realize that was functionality in the chat window that we have, but sort of throughout today's session, similar to what we discussed there at the end. Just he asked initially, he said, "What's the other piece of FI's business?" Because I said it's primarily a service.
Right.
And then he mentioned that he was on the board, and he gave me his email address. So this is really cool.
Great. Yeah, he's a tremendous asset. You ought to take as much as you can get from him. He's been through this before. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's it's a great opportunity. I like the setup. I think at first I didn't understand how this was going to work. So now I think I'm getting a feel for it, and I think the group is as well, and we're excited about it. I think it's a cool opportunity to solve something hard.
That's great. The interesting thing for us in that is what was it we could have done to make it a little clearer a little sooner. So we're trying to figure out what was confusing and what was the breakthrough?
I think the thing that I was confused about was I just assumed that we were going to work on, like, this 2 hours was going to be, we would work with our teams on solving a problem, and that you, Peter, and Joyce would help coach. I don't really know what that format looks like, but I just thought the majority of the work would be done in the 2 hours. And now we're sort of getting to the, hey, this is work you got to do to get ready for class. And maybe it was just wishful thinking. I don't know.
No, well, I think, but when we started calling it "Your Case is the Course," I can see how that could lead to that expectation. Because essentially it's working on your case outside the course will help you present during the course. But
it's like what you learn in the course and then practice in the course on practice cases is then applied to your case outside, but then brought in. So it's an interesting dynamic, and we're probably not quite using the right words. I think we might have actually said it right, but it may have been glossed over, or you maybe just skimmed it instead of really understood the depth of what we were saying. But that helps us see what we need to work on. So that's very appreciative.
Yeah.
Well, I would have to agree, though, Peter, that we did not make clear in our materials the expectation for outside
Well,
time.
even the layout. Well, on outside time, again, though, I would say it's up to you guys. You could get away with doing 1 hour. You could get away with doing 10 hours. It's really up to you. I've actually had people go through doing nothing but the sessions, and they're still going to get their money's worth.
Yeah.
So that's totally up to you. It actually takes years to get this stuff right, and we do say that. But I think part of the problem was we didn't lay it out right. We do now. So here, I don't know if I'm sharing. I think I'm sharing.
Yes, you are.
We now have session assignments and final project assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an improvement because of the feedback you guys have been giving us. Is that wasn't clear, that everything was in two threads, really. It's for the session and then for the project.
Yeah. No, that's helpful.
Yeah, I think we as a team have sort of committed to at least a certain number of hours outside, and that's going to work for us. We could probably go full time on this. And
you're actually.
It is really important, Peter. I think maybe in an initial session or two, it is a decision the team has to make, because if somebody's putting in 5 extra, 10 extra hours, and somebody doesn't want to put in any extra hours, then you're going to have some conflicts.
You got to deal with that. Yeah.
They have to deal with that. So early on, that point needs to be made, and maybe the first homework assignment is, as a team, thinking about how much do we want to put into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably make a bigger deal about that, because you're going to get out of it what you put into it individually and collectively. I also don't mind people figuring some stuff out. I mean, we're not.
Right.
It's by no means too late. You're already starting to get there. So we could accelerate it, but I'm not sure we even need to get it all done ahead of time. There's probably some more graphics we can do in the chart as well. You know, the roadmap to make it a little clearer.
The other thing I think maybe that wasn't clear to me was the team lead, and how that team lead is supposed to act, or if there was an obligation there. Because I think you asked David and I who was going to do it, and I jumped in and volunteered, and I've since asked the group that maybe I wouldn't be able to fulfill that duty properly given some other things I have going on. So,
well, I was going to bring this up. You are slightly disadvantaged also by the fact that you're not actually running the organization.
Yeah.
Like most of the rest of these are teams with a leader who is actually the one. It would be Roman. You know, Roman, Karen, and Rob really should be the ones here, plus maybe a couple of you guys.
Right.
That's the equivalent of what Drew is doing and what the others are doing. Now,
we're down a couple levels, yeah.
Yeah, you're down a couple levels, and so that's why I asked Roman ahead of time. I said, "What organization is your team going to have in mind in the course? Is it going to be a lower level down? It's going to be off to the side, or is it going to be FI writ large?" And when he came back and said FI writ large, I should have come back and said that's going to be a problem because they don't actually run it.
Yeah.
So in a way, you all are serving very much in the role of staff consultants to Roman, Rob, and Karen.
Yep.
The way I see it is you guys are here helping them. So the way to look at it is like James and Peggy are here. Greg and his team are here for their part of the organization. But Roman and Rob and Karen are here, and you guys are here. So I would take this chart and share this with your team and get this clear, and then talk to Roman about it. Or whatever you want to do. So you could either, in my class, what my students used to do is pretend to be the CEO of the organization in their final project, which I didn't really like, which is why I took it out of university and said, you know what, I want to actually do this for people who are running organizations, right? And that's what we have in here, except in your case, you guys are all throughout the organization pretending to run it in the class. So you can either, keep doing what you're doing in light of that, or you could sort of consolidate this view or the helping view, however you want to do it. But I think you should be explicit about it.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for the group by any means, but I guess my thinking was when I realized kind of how this was set up and the other folks involved, that, yeah, we're down a couple levels and that we have that challenge, but sort of that we would be able to work with the executive team at FI throughout to convince them that, hey, here's where our problems are and here's what we want
Well,
to
you
solve.
really want to help them do what you're learning.
Yeah.
They think they're helping you by adding in their voice, but in reality, you're helping them see what they should be doing.
I guess that's my thought, and I think that's sort of where other folks on our team are.
Talk it through. Yeah.
Are you saying that that's
fine,
an uphill battle?
No. I just think that's a way to look at it. I think you should talk to your team about it, and then you should talk to Roman about it, and Rob, and Aaron.
And I think that what you're talking about there also, because I mean, where you say you have staff confidence, you're doing that. Now, for whatever reason, if they wanted you to learn this sort of stuff in that role as staff, then you do have to be clear. And if he says, you know what, I want to hear what you guys say as if Josh, as the team lead, you're running this organization.
That's fine too.
That's fine too.
You ought to get
or
it
he'll
on
say, just give me, or he says, I want to allow 15 minutes and one of you come in and just orient it to what you're learning. And, you know, I mean, what does he want out of it is really.
Yeah, I think he didn't really know what it was going to be either.
He didn't know either.
He just knew because I was doing it and he has trust and faith in me that it would probably be a good thing. The reality is he should have signed up for it. So maybe you can tell him that.
I'll be sure to let him know.
Yeah, he can say, you know what, Roman, you and the team ought to take the next one.
I'm out. You're in.
No, not this class. You're doing fine.
Yeah.
But make of it what you can. Good luck with it, and keep us informed and let us know how we can help. And I'm going to be there for a board meeting in August.
Okay, so you and Jame are on the board?
Yeah, I brought Jame in.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I'll be there. We're going to have it on Wednesday, I think, or Thursday. No, Thursday. So it'll be the day after a class, but I'll be there.
Next week?
No, it's the last week of August.
Okay. Yeah, I'm out next week. I'll be on the training, but I'm going to be at the beach for vacation. So
okay, good.
I'll dial in from the beach.
All right. Man.
Enjoy it.
All right. Thanks for your thanks for sticking around.
Soon.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Joyce, so we don't have any more videotape than we need. I'm going to end this now. Do you want to do a real quick phone call?
Or you can just end the recording.
No, I have to leave the meeting for it to start the process.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Tell you what, I'll call. Why don't you want to go onto Zoom 8 in 5 minutes?
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.